What's going on, guys? It's Kyle here with Gnarly Knives, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the Endura 4. So it's going to be a little bit of two things. So it's going to definitely be the full review, but I also want to do a little bit of discussion talking about K390 steel. It's actually probably the main point. I mean, the Endura 4 I've done before, just in general with the ZDP 189 version, because that was it's my only other, but it was my first Endura 4, and that's one of the things that led me to getting the K390 version. I mean, I do want to get other versions. I'd love to just get the standard VG10 at some point, but the knife, I've now had it for probably getting a little on 2 months, and since I've had it, it's pretty much the only knife I've really been carrying and using. And having been using it for quite a few things, getting a good feel for it, and just furthering why I really enjoy having an Endura 4. But now with the K390, I've just been super impressed with it. The steel has held up really well. I actually have only sharpened it one time, and it was barely a sharpening at that. But that I'll get into a little bit more when I discuss more on the steel. But we'll talk a little bit about the Endura 4 in general, just the review aspect. Just because if you haven't seen the ZDP version, the video I did on that, or just in general, because other than how the steel performs, it's basically the same knife no matter what version you have. So with that, this is the Endura 4 Spyderco. Now this knife I picked up off Amazon. It is still available on Amazon, and you can get it for, I think it's about $133. So definitely not a cheap knife, but I think I discussed this when I did my kind of first impressions, that one knife I've really wanted to get is the Police 4, the K390 version of that, but that's about double the money. It's about $250. Not that I won't one day ever get one, but I just really wanted to get the steel. I already was in love with the Endura 4 from the ZDP version that I have, and being, like I said, just over half the price, and you're basically getting the same amount of knife. The blade's a little bit shorter, but the handle's of about similar length. Of course, it's a little shaped differently, and you actually have a legit finger choil on the Police 4. But this here, I love everything about it. I mean, in a sense, it's like, do I really need to get a Police 4? And no, I mean, I guess really after you have one or two pocket knives, or just knives really, anything after that is really, you're just collecting. But because I just really am enjoying the steel so much, I would love to get other examples of this steel and just other knives. So real quick, I'll do the specs. I'm just gonna fire through the specs real quick because I've done the specs already a couple times. So more or less the overall length of this knife, you're looking at just under 8 3/4 inches. The handle is about 5 17/16, or 4 17/16. It's basically 5-inch handle, just under. You have the total blade length of 3 3/8 inches, and an actual cutting edge of about 3.5 inches. Actually looking right on 3.5 inches. So it's a good size actual cutting edge, so you can get a lot of work done with it. Because one of the things I use it for a lot is food prep. It's what I love using it for, amongst everything else. And then also the weight on this. It's pretty light, especially for the size. It's basically about 3.5 inches, 3.5 ounces. So it makes it about an ounce heavier than the Delica 4. So pretty cool there. I mean, of course, with the FRN handles, that definitely adds some lightness, I guess. Probably a little lighter than like G10 or something like that. So it helps keep the weight down. I mean, especially with the Delica, they're both just really light knives. I mean, the handle is super comfortable. You can kind of have a couple of ways that you can hold it. It's kind of cool because they have that kind of groove towards the middle. So what I'll usually do is depending on what I'm doing, but if I'm like cutting cardboard, I'm not choked up on it. Usually just kind of hold it like this. Usually have my thumb up here somewhere, and then just go to town slicing up cardboard or whatever if I'm doing a quick cut. But if I am doing more, food prep, for example, I baked an apple pie last weekend. We went to see a couple of friends, and my friend is very into like cooking, and she's an amazing cook, but cooks everything from scratch. So I always feel like, I want to do something good to kind of capture that spirit. But I made an apple pie. I don't know, I enjoy making pies and stuff. But I used this to cut up all the apples, and it did pretty well. I used this and Jeff White English trade knife. I used that to like scrape and stuff like that, but I did actually the actual slicing of a couple apples with this, and it did pretty well. Of course, like the larger apples, I think they were the pink ladies, it was a little to get through just because it's a little bit shorter of a blade, but I also used Granny Smiths, and those were perfect length, slice right through without having to do an extra cut just to finish the section, I guess. The steel, I'll get into a bit more, but it is starting to patina a bit. That's just the nature of the K390. I definitely, I'll keep it dry. I had a little bit of issue with rust because just when I first got it, it was so hot and in summer and stuff, and just living in my pocket, I just wasn't as careful, I guess, or pay as much attention to it. And it just got a little bit of surface rust, but I cleaned it up. I actually discussed in the video my method, what I do. But it's kind of cool. You'll be able to maybe see a little bit. It's got a bunch of like finger gunk on it, just from like the finger, like your oils and stuff. Kind of see if that'll help a bit. You can see there's a couple little spots where it's starting to patina. It's not quite as shiny, the blade face itself, as when I first got it. But I kind of like that. It's part of that, it's earning the patina. That's one reason I do actually really like, I generally speaking prefer carbon knives over stainless. I still like stainless. It's funny, I think it's like, generally speaking, with fixed blades, I prefer carbon. Folding knives, I really go either way. But typical like general EDC, I usually just go with more stainless. But I find it's usually, you'll more often find carbon knives in fixed blades. You don't usually see them as commonly with folding knives. Of course, they're out there, but you don't generally see them as much. So I guess for me, it makes it a little more special when I can get a carbon steel folding knife, because I love carbon steel, and this is a great example of that. And it is a tool steel, so it is a very tough steel for the most part. I haven't had any issues with chips, but just running into a couple things. Of course, you're going to get damaged with any steel. But what I was saying with, when I did one like sort of sharpening, because it pretty much will just maintain it with a strop, and I've only, with the exception of that time I sharpened it where I used the strop, I think I've stropped it one time, and this thing is just pretty much has a constant shaving edge. After a lot of use, and if I go a little bit without stropping, of course it'll lose that shaving edge, but it just keeps it for a long time. And that's something that's really cool, because I love having a knife that I can shave. It's just more of I just enjoy it. Knives don't need to be that sharp, unless you're skinning or something like that. You really don't need a razor sharp knife, but it's just fun. Why the hell not? And it's something that I enjoy with the steel. It holds its edge for a very long time. And the one time I did have to sharpen it, wasn't really so much that it was dull, but I was trimming a couple of like leaves off of one of my plants, and it was just kind of whatever, just not that I wasn't paying attention, but I was just focusing more on the plant than the knife. And I don't know, I just happened to run like the upper section of the knife, like pretty much like midway up the belly up, and just happened to just hit and ride the blade up on part of a ceramic pot. It was just one quick light, whatever. It was still sharp if you could feel it, but if you looked in the light, you could see a little bit of a reflection, just that length, it's probably from like, yeah, about here up. But it was cool because a lot of times when something like that, it wasn't that I hit it super hard, but even just other steels, doing the same thing, you do the fingernail, and try and feel where the edge had rolled, and I couldn't feel it on either side. I mean, there was definitely damage, and it was definitely a little bit of a burr from it rolling a bit, but it was imperceptible, at least to my fingernail, while checking it out, and it still felt very sharp. I mean, that section wasn't shaving anymore, but if I could have left it, and it would have still been fine. Um, but what I do is I just threw it on my, I think it was the 12,000 grit stone, and I did maybe 10 total passes, just, one, two, three, four, five on each side, and it was completely gone. And stropped it, and it's been fine since. And that was probably like 2 weeks ago. So this went probably a month and a half without seeing a stone other than when I initially sharpened it when getting it. And it's another reason that's awesome. With K390, it does hold an edge very well. Of course, with that edge retention, that wear resistance, comes abrasion resistance when it comes to sharpening. But I don't really think it takes that much longer. It's probably about as much as it takes to sharpen ZDP 189. But even, maybe to do a full sharpening, maybe an extra 5 or 10 minutes as opposed to like S30V or something like that. But it didn't take any longer than, like I said, the ZDP or even M4 or anything like that. Um, probably similar to like a S110V when it comes to maybe how long to sharpen it, for a stainless example. But even that too, it's just an extra couple minutes, and it holds it very well. Um, I think I'm probably just more for fun, just to clean up the edge a little bit because there's no damage looking at it. Um, and for the most part, it's still shaving a little bit down towards the back of the blade, closer to the handle. But I don't know, I just feel like sharpening it. So I'm probably, after this video, I'll probably throw it on my 8,000 and then my 12,000 grit. And just, I'll probably do 15, 20 passes on each stone, and then strop it, and it'll be good probably for a couple months. But because what I want to do is I want to just see how long I can get this to, like, get it to a really good hair whittling edge, and then I want to mark or something the date and just get a rough idea of how long from getting it, just with all the stuff I do, just general knife usage of, cutting cardboard, doing stuff with the plants, food prep, cutting whatever, and see how long it gets until the point where like this really needs a sharpening, where, the edge has some damage, or just in general is just dull from use. And I want to do it without, so no stropping, and just see how long it goes until I need a sharpening. So that I'll be kind of curious to see. I want to kind of start doing that with just other steels, just kind of get them to a point of just say hair whittling sharp, so as sharp as I can get it, and then try and get a rough idea. But I want to keep like a little journal, because it could take, I'm not doing the same cutting tasks every single day, but kind of mark down, like, I cut up some apples to make a pie. I, you know, broke up a bunch of cardboard, but just so that way I can do this general tasks with each steel to get a better idea. So it could be something like, all right, yeah, it took me a month on K390 to do it, for example, but then it took a month for VG10, but maybe I just happened to do more cutting tasks when I was using the K390 versus VG10, so it seems like it's the same amount of time, but it's just I happen to be using it more that month with this versus that, if that makes sense. And I'm kind of rambling a bit. Um, but overall, it's just, like I said, I'm super impressed with the knife. I do want to get, at least another example or two of K390. It doesn't need to be like me with S30V. I love S30V, and a lot of it is just because it's common and used in a lot of stuff. But um, Oh, I just kind of spaced out. Um, oh, what was I saying? I completely went blank. Um, oh, I'm sorry. I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, I like to try and have a couple examples of each steel, so it's, can you just get the one off and, it could be really good as opposed to others or really bad opposed to others. But if you have a couple examples, but we're saying with S30V is I have probably 12, 13 something knives in S30V, but it's also pretty common steel. I mean, which is a good thing. I see why it is. But I think that'll be something kind of cool to do on the channel, just going forward, being able to just kind of do those just regular life comparisons of steels. And it's something that'll probably take years to do, just with how many steels are out there. But this is a steel I do definitely enjoy. And if, you are looking to spend a little bit of money on a knife, but not a ton of money, and you want just a workhorse knife, and that's what's kind of nice about it too. I mean, the knife, it's made to just be a work knife. It's not super fancy. I mean, of course, you can buy a bunch of aftermarket stuff and scales and clips and everything. But just the way it comes standard when you buy it, it's just to be a working knife. So if you need a steel that just cuts and cuts and cuts, I think K390 would be an awesome option for that. I mean, especially just the knife itself is just very good for that, but having something that's just a workhorse steel, that's why I really enjoy tool steels. I don't know who thought to start making knives out of these steels, but whoever did, I'm glad they did. Um, but that's pretty much it there. I hope you guys got something out of this. I know it's been a few weeks since I did my last video. I really have been trying to do more. But I think I mentioned one of my last videos, but with starting a new job, just a lot more hours, which isn't a bad thing, definitely overtime and stuff. But it's just I've been having a lot less time. And, normally weekends, just like with anybody, you work during the week and then the weekends you do the stuff you don't have time to. But it's just now having less time during the week. It's like more stuff I got to do on the weekend. So I just got like a little bit of time here now. That's why I wanted to pump this out, just to get you guys out and let you know that I'm not done making videos. But I was kind of playing with this a little earlier and using it. And I was like, hey, I think now's a good time to finally do that review and discuss the steel, because there was nothing to I really wanted to talk about the K390. But guys, let me know in the comments, if you have this or any other version or just K390 in general, your thoughts on it. I'm really enjoying the steel. And if you guys want, if you have any requests of, if you just go through my videos, I show and talk about different knives. If you'd like my thoughts on any steel, as long as it's a steel that I have and I've used, I'd love to give my thoughts on it. And again, too, it's just my opinions, but with experience of usage, and especially with sharpening, and just I don't baby my knives, so I get a good idea with a lot of them of what they'll hold up to, and I think that definitely helps with the channel. Just it's kind of that, so you don't have to do it, I will kind of thing. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check us out on Instagram. It's the same name, Gnarly Knives. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Remember to keep carving and stay sharp. Peace.